around the Masando nature Kasin Sosa Ego Ea between the Huina. The Habit Hondo around his last so that he has him so banana stay often. Yet Ea which hundred Ea of bananas day of Sandole. Aro Hasin so they came for the so the sound is now this now. Ko kwa Hasin so and he need a Haitian banana. So the Hasin so ada nan hin tinido design light of cow need a Haitian banana than it in the nasa. Classification Hasin so beat out for the zone to deal England the do it either. A co with our vinci so without the Hajo the Houdin no she Hasin so yet on his relation. A co ticket Michelon lawyer or Satit so that's on him and Hobs on law. Ado the Punso equal named the Hanana state or Listo. Because you get a side Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, do we have any announcements?
Mr. Vice Chair, this is Angie Benally.
Benally?
Yes, the Health Education and Human Services Committee had scheduled a work session as well with the staff development and training for March 25th, and that's this coming Friday. I am going to be placing it on the agenda for the HES to consider rescheduling that meeting, considering that the Navajo is going to be meeting in Twin Arrows on Wednesday through Friday. And there's going to be a special meeting for Navajo in Twin Arrows on Thursday and Friday. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Benally. And then I think we were scheduled for a HES meeting on Wednesday, and that would have, I guess that would have to be complete by 1 p.m. if we're going to have the meeting Wednesday afternoon. So we can't take action at this time, but we can regroup as a committee and give you advisement. Thank you. And then do we have anything scheduled for tomorrow? Remember that was one of the days we had thrown out for a variety of different topics we were trying to cover, but at this point, I think we never finalized any of them. Okay, we'll move to number 2, recognized guests and visiting officials. I'd like to ask the presenters from the Division of Social Services to identify themselves at this time. Thank you.
Brady, thank you.
Good morning, members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. This is Deanna Neswoodgishi, Division of Social Services Executive Director. Good morning.
Good morning, members of the Health and Education Human Services Committee members. This is Marlinda Littleman, Deputy Division Director.
Good morning. This is Roxanne Gorman, Department Manager for the Department for Self-Reliance.
Good morning. This is Regina Yazzie with Department of Family Service.
Good morning. This is Riyama Tibu with Navajo Family Assistance Services.
Hi, good morning. This is Frida White with Developmental Disabilities Program.
Good morning. This is Brenda Sosi, Principal Accountant with Division of Social Services.
Good morning. This is Mary Deschini Reyna with the Navajo ICWA program.
Okay.
Good morning. This is Sylvia Tyler with the Department of Child Care and Development.
Good morning. This is Tony Miller with the Navajo Treatment Center for Children and Their Families.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. This is Rosalind McGay with the Office of the Executive Director. Good morning.
Fine.
Is that everyone, Ms. Naswagishi?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Vice Leader. Yes, that's everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll review the agenda. This is a work session, so you don't need to adopt it or anything like that. But committee members, I'm just going to go down starting at work session reports and read them off to you if you want to discuss them and amend the lineup of the agenda. We should do it at this point. So A is legislation number 0020-22, an action related to HES approving an amended plan of operations for the Navajo Division of Social Services, and that's sponsored by our colleague, Honorable Halona. And I am looking to see if he is on the line at this time. Delegate Halona, have you gotten on yet? Okay, so we'll then go straight to Ms. Neswood-Gishi at that time. If Delegate Halona gets on soon, then we can defer to him. Then Department of Family Services, we have Ms. Yazzie and Ms. White, and then DSR, Ms. Gorman, Family Assistance Services after that, from Ms. Mateba, and B, measuring the goals and objectives and inclusion of the work in progress accomplished as indicated up to and including the comprehensive budget FY 2022, overview of the DSS strategic plan and the Navajo plan, Ms. Littleman, and then item C, the funds reverted to the federal government covering the previous 5 years, including the 638 contracts not fully used to benefit the Navajo Nation, federal fund reversion from FY 01/01/2016 to FY 12/31/2021 SOCI. And then D, decrease or closure of DSS services at Navajo Nation chapter locations in Arizona, New Mexico, well, and definitely and Utah, not or Utah. And that will be Ms. Neswood-Gishi. And then 5, close the work session announcement, adjournment. Does anybody want to edit the lineup, committee members? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to recognize Ms. Neswood-Gishi to provide item 4A.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair and members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. Thank you for allowing us to do a work session with the committee in regards to our legislation number 0020-22, proposed amendment of the Division of Social Services Master Plan of Operation. And as introduced earlier, we do have our key team members who will be, I will call out to do their specific presentation, such as Ms. Marlinda Littleman, Deputy Division Director, Ms. Regina Yazzie, Department Manager for Department of Family Services, Ms. Roxanne Gorman, Department Manager 3 for Department of Self-Reliance, Ms. Frida White, Program Manager for the Developmental Disabilities Program, as well as Ms. Ryan Mateba, the Senior Program Project Specialist overseeing the Navajo Family Assistance Services. So, Mr. Vice Chair, we did send an initial PowerPoint to the committee 2 weeks ago, and so we will be covering what was sent to the committee. We have updated it as well. If the committee likes us to share it again, we can certainly send that over to Ms. Angelita Benali so that you have an updated PowerPoint presentation.
When was it updated?
Mr. Vice Chair, it was updated on Friday. It was just adding additional information that the committee had when the agenda was updated. We wanted to include the information.
Just now.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair, I believe that we did get an email. It was sent out to all the HES members as well at 9:23 this morning.
Okay, so there's the one at 9:23. Mr. Mose doesn't have it, so Ms. Nazugishi, who sent that?
Honorable Vice Chair Slater, I will have one of our team members. We normally have Ms. Rosalind Begay doing the communication with Ms. Angelita Benali. So we'll have that sent in.
Whoever's laughing in the background, could you please mute your phone?
Mr. Vice Chair, I forward the email that we received from Division of Social Services, Rosalind Begay.
Your middle name, Herbert, or?
Yeah, Herbert.
Pull up your email, see if you just got. Okay, so at the point of clarification, you have I have a printed copy, and it says HES work session. Well, it says HEHCS work session. So I guess it's the Health, Education, Human Committee Services work session. And it says legislation number 0020-22. And then I have a new document that at the top says Navajo Division of Social Services priorities -NN Office of the President and Vice President. And it says it's dated March 21, 2022. So, okay, it looks like we did get the updated, more PowerPoint looking one, and Mr. Mose is going to print that off for those of us here. So I guess give us a moment. We were only given this, less than 10 minutes ago, so I don't want to be reviewing something with my colleague here that is inaccurate.
Chair, this is Chad Beta from OLC. Can I get a copy, electronic copy, please? Thank you.
I'll forward.
Yeah, Mr. Benali, can you forward that to, okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can fix that one now. Okay, Ms. Nazugishi, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair Slater. So we wanted to give some historical background in regards to our current process of change. And so I will be covering the next 2 slides in regards to the background of 2019 and how we are going about making changes. And so we just wanted to go back to when nomination President Jonathan Nez, the Vice President, Myron Lizer officially took office on January 15, 2019. And we had looked at a message that then President Nez had stated that we're very grateful to receive over 65% of the votes from the Navajo voters in the general election. This high percentage signifies a mandate from the Navajo people, a mandate to create positive change. And in our view, change presents opportunity. The opportunity to work together to strengthen and empower our people and our communities. So I had started my position in the middle part of April 2019. The Division of Social Services had delegated individuals until I came on to my position as Executive Director. So on May 23rd, 2019 is when I was confirmed by the committee, and Honorable Delegate Charlene Slow was my sponsor at that time. And so I took that opportunity to change and focus on the efforts of the Office of the Executive Director to streamline and automate case management services division-wide, so it can result in efficient eligibility determination processes, to automate our process rather than using a manual process, prevent duplication of services, and to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse, to expedite data reporting for compliance, and to coordinate efforts to increase benefit assistance across programs and to leverage all of our resources. So to accomplish that, we had division-wide strategic planning. We had sessions held on July 25th, 26th, 2019, September 12 and 13, 2019, as well as November 19, 2019 and 2019. So we had 3 strategic planning sessions with our office, the managers over the 6 programs, as well as the first line field supervisors, which we call as middle managers. So we needed to have the input from all of the division services and managers, as well as middle managers. So we did oversee and discuss the realignment of the Division of Social Services programs and departments. Consequently, a division-wide comprehensive plan consisting of the Division of Social Service strategic plans aligned with the tribal plans of each program or department, and has been established to enhance technology, infrastructure, and to realign our direct services. Shortly after that, we did have a general staff meeting with all 400 or 600 plus employees at that time on September 20, 2019, and that was held at Twin Arrows. Again, the focus of that was to have every single employee within the Division of Social Services to hear of the strategic planning outcomes that we had, as well as having their awareness, their buy-in of how we're moving the entire Division of Social Services. So on the next slide, on page 3, we do talk about our continued processes to change. We did have initial legislation 0303-19, and that was in October 2019. It was our amendments to do our plan of operation, the initial one. The legislation was tabled for a work session, and we did have 3 separate work sessions at that time. And one plan of operation, the Navajo Indian Child Welfare Act plan of operation was tabled at that time. So we do have, at that time, shortly after, there was the Navajo Nation declared a state of emergency. On March 11, 2020, the resolution of the Commission on Emergency Management declaring a public health state of emergency for the Navajo Nation due to the confirmation of the coronavirus disease COVID-19 in all areas. So that sort of put, we had to refocus our services at that time. And so on May 13, 2020, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee did pass legislation 0108-20, which was amending the Navajo Indian Child Welfare Act plan of operation. So at that time, all Division of Social Services plan of operations had been reviewed by the committees in January 2020. And then May 2020 was the last program that had their plan of operations all updated. And so in the middle, so we've had to change and adapt to our services because of the pandemic that did start in March of 2020. So moving forward, after almost 2 years of working through a pandemic for all of our division employees, we learned that, again, through strategic planning and discussions with the managers, is one area was the Navajo Family Assistance Services took on a lot of direct assistance. And it was at that time with the plan of operation change, was in the area that needed to be amended to have it as a standalone program. So this resulted in the legislation number 00220-20, and that's the work session that we are working on today. And so on the next slide, why change is the heading. We have a matrix with issues, significant operational changes, and benefits. So for Department of Family Services, where the Developmental Disability Programs is being merged under Department of Family Services, and this is on the agenda. I will be moving on to where the second one, Department of Family Services proposed transfer of the Developmental Disability Program to Department of Family Services. So the presenters are Ms. Regina Yazzie, Department Manager 3 for Department of Family Services, as well as Ms. Frida White, Program Manager, Developmental Disabilities Program. So I'll turn on my time over to Ms. Yazzie. Regina.
Thank you. Yes, this is Regina Yazzie. The PowerPoint is what I'm going to be referring to here on slide number 4. Up at the top, DFS and DD program, developmental disabilities. The concern issue, as stated there in column 1 under issues, is that there are 2 state funding under the state of Arizona through an intergovernmental agreement. So each DD program and the ALTEX we're talking about when we're talking about the state program is the Arizona Long-Term Care Services, ALTEX. When I say that, they have 2 separate intergovernmental agreements, and because they operate 2 separate types of services. So the significant changes that we're looking at here is in terms of the merging of the 2 programs under Department of Family Service, basically to align case management activities, to again look at the experts in terms of the case managers that we have on board with either the ALTEX program or the DD program. Case managers who have been doing the work for many years now and are considered experts in terms of the type of work that they do. And also focusing on the needs of appropriate services for each section. Again, different populations we're talking about here. We're talking about under ALTEX, they are the adult and elderly members who are eligible under the state of Arizona access program, and they then become eligible under ALTEX when the individual or member applies under the state of Arizona ALTEX for services. For the DD program, again, just looking at the case management piece of each area. Also looking at some of the best practices as it relates to the unique populations under each department. And then in terms of the benefits, the last column there, the third column, is to serve the same population with special needs. We're talking about folks, adults and elderlies who are in need of these special services to meet their needs, whether that be developmental, behavioral services that they need to address their disability. Also to provide an efficient and effective case management activity by simplifying internal procedures. The Altex and DD service provide case management in the state of Arizona and receive reimbursement for members that it serves on a monthly basis. The third bullet is to streamline DD managers' duties by eliminating time spent on administrative duties to focus on direct services. So again, just focusing on direct services for clients out in our service areas under these two Altex and DD program. I'll give some time to Frida to add. Frida?
Hi, good morning. This is Frida, the program manager for the Navajo Nation Developmental Disability Program. Just to echo off of what Regina said, there is a lot of focus on, I just wanted to elaborate on the last bullet point there under benefits. Within the DDD program, there is a lot of focus on a manager supporting their staff and to be a person that helps develop the staff and the processes that we have. Our processes are continually changing, and we call it standard work. It's a set process that we follow day in and day out when we provide case management for our members. So a part of my duties are to ensure that my staff are aware of those processes and to ensure that we have timeliness and that we meet those matrix, those performance standards. So just to elaborate on that specific part, the primary focus of my duties is to make sure that my staff feel supported and that they understand all of the changes that are occurring pretty much on a weekly or even monthly basis. So that's my additional input. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Regina and Frida, for providing the change of the DD program merging under Department of Family Services to align with the Altex program. So the Altex program and the DD, they have their own database system that they utilize, which is from the state. They do not log into Navajo Nation for any specific services, and that's where we determined through our assessment that they would align together. Both Altex and DD, they do not determine eligibility for their members. It is the state. And this is where individuals who feel that they're in need of those services from Altex or DD, they work through the state offices and they get their determination made from the state. And then the state determines the services that will be provided. And so this is where Ms. Yazzie had spoken a little bit earlier, that it's a cost reimbursement. So they do not have ongoing contacts with families in their home setting. It is a different type of services, as Ms. Yazzie had stated earlier. It's individuals who may need to be in facilities. So they're not making the home visits to families as a primary. Most of it is in facilities, nursing homes, or other facilities that will meet the need of this population that is necessary. So that's where the two we have determined that is where they would be aligned best within the Department of Family Services. So we'll move on to our next bullet area, Department of Family Services, where the Navajo Family Assistance Services will be taken out of the Department for Self-Reliance Plan of Operation. And I'll turn this time over to Mrs. Roxanne Gorman, Department Manager 3 for Department for Self-Reliance. Roxanne?
Good morning, members of the HESI committee and those in the audience. The effort to work with INFAS began in earnest with the intent to assist INFAS to become automated. We were planning to use our tribal assistance system, which is a case management software that DSR has been using for 12 years. It has been a very good case management software that we have had 0 audit findings for 10 years, that our quarterly reports to ACF are submitted timely. And so we are meeting also a necessary requirement, a work participation rate that's necessary for all 10 of both state and tribal. So we did consult with ACF that we were going to be providing technical assistance and support to help INFAS become automated. And we were also in the process of helping them with revising their policies, and then also to move financial services from DFS so that DFS could focus on social work. So those were the reasons as to why we accepted assisting Navajo Family Assistance Services. At the time, we began in earnest in February and to help INFAS become separate from DFS. DFS continued to have the budget and the contracts. We did not administer those budgets or contracts, but we did advise and guide INFAS. And we began with training on TAS, and then we also started to advise on the policies because the general assistance and burial assistance had not been revised. We had helped in prior years with the LIHEAP policy. So as we began this effort, we got hit, as Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi mentioned, with the pandemic, and the whole Navajo Nation went into shelter in place, which was a major impact on services. However, after 2 weeks closure, we staff at INFAS and DSR chose to return to work because we could not turn our backs on thousands of families with needed assistance during a pandemic. That became our primary focus because we returned to work 3 days out of the week, and we sheltered in place 2 work days. And we were also trying very hard to help INFAS because they got additional funds. They received LIHEAP cares, CSBG cares, general assistance cares, burial assistance cares. And so through that process, we began to exceed the kind of technical support we could offer. And it became increasingly difficult to offer them the support they needed. So in consultation with Mrs. Nesbitt-Gishi, we determined that in the fall of 2020, it was necessary that INFAS be transferred to the division, which is a general funded office, to oversee the activities of INFAS because it was becoming very consuming, and we could cause harm to our TANF block grant, which does not allow DSR to fund non-DSR or non-TANF activities. And through this course that we took, we were very pleased that INFAS was successful in getting their own 638 contract, established procedures for LIHEAP cares, regular LIHEAP, and I understand they now have LIWAP. And then they also were able to establish continue the CSBG and also establish CSBG cares procedures. And then general assistance, they also were able to use the funds that they normally get and the CARES fund. As you know, burial assistance exploded. There was burial assistance regular, which is 638, focus. There's Burial Assistance Cares, which increased to 3,500. And then there's the Navajo Nation Burial Assistance. And on top of that was the Navajo School Clothing. So it was a tremendous growth on part of INFAS, and that they had all these different funding sources and policies and procedures. It was determined that it should be and should have been a standalone program. So with that, in January of 2021, it went under the executive office for those reasons that I cited. And then the other reasons too were that the data port was an issue because the former controller was not allowing for the use to undergo this new effort to automate different funding sources. I understand that has changed with the current controller. The data port is so necessary that payments can be made through this process. We are able to fund 2,600 families using the data port without processing one check. All decisions are made locally. So that is what Ms. Neswood-Gishi and the INFAS manager envision for all the INFAS funding, but it will require for the data port to be available. Also, the manner of this shift, I think through learning experience, it became very clear that all these financial assistance were sorely needed at a very difficult time. And I think that the progress that's being made to automate will be significant and improve tremendously the services offered by INFAS. Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Gorman, for the update and the rationale for the change as far as removing the Navajo Family Assistance Services out of Department for Self-Reliance. And so committee members, I just wanted to also add in as well that I'm glad that Mrs. Gorman was able to provide out some very specific key points, such as the 93-638 contract. It had several different programs under Department of Family Services, such as the Navajo Treatment Center for Children and Families, as well as the Navajo Family Assistance Services. They were merged under one contract for 638, and we were successful last year to get them to 3 separate contracts. So each manager will be specifically responsible for the funding that they receive. Prior, Ms. Regina Yazdi would have to try and incorporate data and reports from the Navajo Family Assistance Services, which was GA and Burial Assistance, as well as the Navajo Treatment Center and Children and Families. So that has been one accomplishment, again, for Division of Social Services to have the contracts very specific with the scope of work for that services for that contract. So thank you, Mrs. Gorman, for bringing that up. And then as well as all of the additional funding that Navajo Family Assistance Services has taken on is where this legislation is where we're requesting to have Navajo Family Assistance Services as a standalone program. And the executive director will be the immediate supervisor for the Navajo Family Assistance Program Manager.
2,300 and
Okay. And so we'd like to move on to the third area, which is the Navajo Family Assistance Services, the last of the matrix. And I'd like to turn over this time to Ms. Rayanne Mateba, the manager for Navajo Family Assistance Services. And again, Ms. Mateba took over the supervision of this program just right in the midst of the pandemic. And she started in September of 2021. So she has 4, 5 months, 6 months under her belt. And so her background is in accounting. So this is appropriate to have someone with that background overseeing the Navajo Family Assistance Services. So I turn the time over to Rayanne.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and thank you for that introduction, Ms. Neswood-Gishi. As Ms. Neswood-Gishi had mentioned, my name is Ria Matiba. I was the senior accountant with Department of Childcare, and coming into this new position and new role has definitely been a challenge and very eye-opening as to the type of assistances that Navajo families are requesting for, and how big of a program and the support that this program actually needs to become a standalone program as we're moving forward. Just real quick, I wanted to give just a kind of a weekly update of how many types of applications we receive. As mentioned before, we get 638 burial assistance requests, general assistance requests, LIHEAP applications, CSBG requests. We also still have the school clothing applications that we're trying to pay out, as well as LIWAP. On a weekly basis, we've provided about 203. That was just last week. We've gotten 878 approved from our casework offices, and about 1,458 that are pending payments. So that would kind of help to give insight as to how many applications we do receive on a weekly basis. And I do have about 19 staff members. However, 5 of them are temporaries. We have 2 of them here stationed at the administration office, which leaves me about 12 senior caseworkers out at the field locations. So we do have quite a bit of applications and requests coming in at the field locations and not many staff members. So we are working on continuing to expand that. So again, just to, like I said, give you kind of a background on that. Moving forward, the demands and expectations for human services is definitely increasing, as Ms. Foreman had mentioned. We do get quite a bit, a lot of application requests, especially for burial, that has really, really increased. We've got the LIHEAP as well as LIWAP, which are new fundings to assist family with their electric or utility expenses as well as water expenses. So that has definitely increased, more so in the last couple of months. We did have CARES back in September, early last year. We did our best to continue to pay them out. We still have quite a bit outstanding and still working with OOC to get them paid out. So that is also another challenge we're working with. So it kind of gives you an idea of why we do need to be a standalone program. We do have quite a bit of financial assistance available to our Navajo families and households located on and off the reservation, as long as they are enrolled tribal members. We do have various funding sources, federal, tribal, and donations, which is also going to help with some of the expenses for the school clothing program, as well as burial assistance for COVID-19. We are working to, like I said, increase our workforce. We are trying to get vacant positions filled. We did lose quite a bit with the retirement efforts, as well as staff who had decided that they wanted to find other opportunities. So we are working on that. Again, we have burial assistance, general assistance, CSBG, LIHEAP, LIWAP, and school clothing. For LIHEAP, LIWAP, and CSBG, we also have ARPA funding that we're going to be receiving. CSBG, we have CARES that we are working on expending soon. We are working on the internal processes to be streamlined, automated, and improved as much as we can in a positive role, just so that we can continue providing the assistances our families do need out there. We will work on streamlining the application and the payment processes, automate the application and payment process, which Ms. Roxanne Gorman had mentioned earlier. Right now, we are currently doing the RDP process for all of these, which delays payments to families who are in desperate need of these assistance programs. We have people who apply for crisis because their electricity or utility payments or utility services are going to be interrupted due to non-payment. Of course, everyone has been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. So we do have clients who are facing those types of situations. Unfortunately, when it goes through the RDP process, it does still take time for OOC to do their reviews and their entries. More recently, we have started to work with OOC to really identify how we can further assist to get these payments processed immediately. So it does take time to, once a senior caseworker approves an RDP and they send it up for my approval or for Deanna's approval, we have to double check everything. If there's something misspelled, maybe the last name transpose number, then we have to have senior staff workers correct it and then send it back. If we don't, then it goes to OOC, and it does take time for that to come back for us to correct and resubmit again. So it would be very helpful to have all of this going through the TAS system that we're trying to implement and get all of these payments processed and automated as quick as possible. So we do have audit findings I've noticed from the past prior years that we're trying to work on. And I do believe that once we move into the TAS system, we can definitely decrease those findings and hopefully be as proficient as DSR is. It would help us to improve customer services as we could immediately enter in all of this information into the TAS database system and get things processed as quick as possible. We're also working on revising the policies to better meet the needs of our general assistance, of our clients that are requesting for assistances. We do have quite a bit of policies that are outdated and still in draft format, and our staff do need better guidance from those so that we can expand our reach to our families out there. We do need to request for additional funding and establish a sound infrastructure and capital outlay to address the needs of both the employees and the clients in the facilities. Right now, we are sharing buildings with Department of Family Services, as well as with BIA buildings, which does kind of hinder or limit some of our services to our families out there. So we would like to move forward to establish or at least get our own facilities so that we can better help our families that are in need and have a better place for them to apply. Because right now, some of them are having to wait out in the parking lot, or my staff have to go out to other locations to assist our families, and that's not very helpful. So we're just trying to do our best to look forward to better improving this program. So thank you for that, committee members.
Okay, thank you, Rayanne, for that presentation. And so I'd like to just add on some areas that Ms. Mateba had mentioned on. As far as automating the process and using the Tribal Assistance System, TAS, it's an electronic case management database. And we actually hired, as of today, the first day is Ms. Natanya Kita. She is trained in the Tribal Assistance System, so she will be continuing to provide training to the division staff on that case management database. She's also able to run reports so we can be more timely in that area of automation. Currently, we may have to call the different offices and asking their data. So once everyone enters, all division programs will be entering in, with the exception of Altex and DD. Again, they're on a separate state case management database. We would be able to get data quicker so that we can move forward. So Ms. Natanya, would you like to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, HESI committee members. Today's my first day, but I have worked for the Navajo Nation for 10 years prior. And the automation of services to the Navajo Nation people is going to be a benefit. And I've worked with the, I guess you could say, the database company for a while. So I'm familiar with a lot of the positives and also become aware of where we can streamline services. So I look forward to working with all the Division of Social Services programs and also fielding any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Natanya. In the other areas regarding the building capacity, Division of Social Services, we did submit a proposal in regards to the ARPA funding. It was vetted by DOJ as meeting the criteria for ARPA funding. And so that is one of our proposals within Division of Social Services to have, we did indicate 7 different cluster style office buildings. So all of the services that we're discussing today, and I know some of them, they're not on the, to be discussed today, but I do have all the appropriate managers on this work session so that we can do more wraparound services to our families as opposed to having them drive 30, 40 miles in a different direction to receive another social services program. And as Rayanne had mentioned, the BIA buildings, they do not allow anyone into the building. And that's where she's stating that her staff have to go outside and meet with their family in the parking lot, which is not conducive to their needs. But again, we do not operate or own that building, so we have to comply. As well as our other programs, they are leasing buildings. And so if those landlords have other criteria, then we have to abide by it. And this is where we're looking at having more Navajo Nation office buildings so that we can move forward in providing the services needed for the families. In regards to current updated policies and procedures, thank you, committee members, for passing the legislation for the LIHEAP policy. So we will be coming forward again with our other financial policies, such as general assistance, burial assistance. Right now, we're going through the review process, so we will be submitting that legislation soon. And then our community service block grant, we want to move forward with that. So we have several new funding sources or outdated policies, as Ms. Mateba had mentioned. So we will be coming before the committee for those areas. So now we have completed the portion of the issues, significant operational changes and benefits for the change that we are requesting to have the developmental disabilities streamlined under Department of Family Services, to remove the Navajo Family Assistance Program from Department for Family Services, as well as having the Navajo Family Assistance Services as a separate program under the Office of Executive Director. So we will go on to the agenda B, report, measuring the goals and objectives and inclusion of the work in progress accomplished as indicated up to and including the comprehensive budget of fiscal year 2022. And we will do the overview of the Division of Social Services strategic plan and the Nahata plan. I turn my term over to Ms. Marlinda Littleman, the Deputy Division Director. Marlinda.
We'll pause right here, and thank you, Ms. Nezukishi, and to all the presenters. So we have Chair So now, and I believe we also have Delegate Charlene So and Delegate Holona on the line. So the whole team is here. Committee members, Chair, do you want me just to ask about questions now and then hand it back over to you, or do you want to make some comments now?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Slater and committee members. appreciate all the folks starting the meeting or for the work session. Had a little bit of fuel problems. And I was stuck beside the road for a while. Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi and staff. I listened to your opening statement, and it's really concerning. I was hoping that this approach would be straightforward. However, you know, we're in year 4, and if there was such a mandate, then how come it took us this long to come up with these new strategies? And certainly it's concerning. Just the fact that knowingly we had straight on the start, the committee was heavily involved in helping straighten out the ICWA aspects. And then also now the FAS is another one that's really concerning. And we realize that your points of wanting to do certain things, for myself, it's like Altex, the agreement is in the process of being renewed, but the movement on the Navajo Nation side is appearing to say what we're wanting in the new Altex agreement, what we're going to get. And so that's a little concerning to me. It's very presumptuous. And in that aspect, we, from where I'm sitting at and listening to the presentation, there's a lot of assumptions that the outside agencies are going to go along with everything the Navajo Nation is requesting, and sometimes that doesn't work to the satisfaction of the Navajo Nation. So going forward, I'm sure the rest of the committees have their questions, but that would be my opening statement in regard to this. Let's do some statements that there's an evaluation that occurred that recommends this. However, who were the evaluators or who were the agencies? And we're supposed to take it at, if I may use the word, carte blanche acceptance. And from that aspect, we really have to look at this in a way that the way that the committee has dealt with the division and its programs. Another major point is the grant domestic violence shelters. That distribution was pretty much a real experience, and that for one of them to become and referred to the Utah Navajo Health Services. And I hope the rest of the other recipients of the domestic violence shelters aren't enduring the same agony of getting their grants appropriated to them. So we have a lot of interaction with the division and the programs, and that's the part that I think is the perspective that the folks on the call have to realize. And so with that, committee members, there's other folks that want to make statements or questions, the presentation. Floor is open to you.
Chair, can I ask a couple questions?
Sure. Honorable Vice Chair Slater, you have the floor.
Okay, so if you go to the first part of the matrix, it says family services and developmental disabilities program, combining them together. Now, the Altex program has, it has its own software system through the state, right? And my question is there something that we use internally in addition to that? I've heard in the past that the Altex program's computer and IT equipment is super outdated. And I think that would be, how do I say this, a priority before doing any plan of operations changes. And I do want to hear about that, because I've heard this issue, and this is our opportunity to ask you about everything across the division. So I'm just going to start there. I hear the equipment is outdated and it impedes their ability to access the state system on the hardware that they have, and that they don't have IT support from the program or from the division out in the further reaches of these offices. And I think, isn't it the Navajo Mountain, the Natsus-On office, and there's a couple others that are scheduled to be closed now? I want to hear why those are being scheduled for closure, and how are we going to continue to provide service delivery to those citizens? And what is the plan to upgrade the IT equipment so that our workers are able to access the software, the state software that they need to? And then also to provide IT services, because one thing I would like to see, and I'll need it before I vote on this legislation, is it a vacancy listing report? Is that what they call it? For the division? I think of any of the programs under our subject matter area or jurisdiction as a committee, DSS has had some of the highest turnover, and we haven't seen a lot of people come in to fill those positions. So I'd like to think that people are applying, but at the same time, there's been enough things publicly reported about issues at DSS that people might be holding out. So I really want to hear about the plan for service delivery. I understand conceptually why you'd want to have Altex programs aligned, but I'm really concerned about the workers on the ground. So I'll start there. It's kind of meandering, but thank you. You were muted.
Thank you, Vice Chair Slater, for those additional comments. Let me go back to Ms. Deanna Neswit-Gishi to respond, and then to any other staff she thinks would provide additional comments. Ms. Neswit-Gishi.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So, as well as other members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. So Honorable, I do hear how you're needing to be straightforward, that we're in year 4, and there's concerns with how Division of Social Services is moving forward in regards to the ICWA aspects, as well as the Navajo Family Assistance Services is concerning. And yes, this is where we're looking at streamlining our services. In regards to if our funding source are outside agencies, if they'll have concerns with these changes. And so with the realignment of the Developmental Disabilities Program, just under the headings of the Department of Family Services, there's going to be no change in services. Their offices will remain the same. And we do have monthly meetings with the Developmental Disabilities team from the state. And this is where they have been apprised of the where the services are going to still be the same, but it's just realigning under the Department of Family Services. And if need be, Ms. Frida White can provide additional information. So that's going to remain as is. And then regarding the change of Navajo Family Assistance Services removed from the Department for Self-Reliance program, Ms. Roxanne Gorman did explain that we initially had put 10% of our general fund budget to cover the Department for Self-Reliance key team members to provide the additional support and guidance so that there was no impact in their funding service. But as the pandemic came forward is where Ms. Gorman had mentioned that there was a need for a lot more direct service financial assistance. And that's where we moved it out under the Department for Self-Reliance so that there's no concern of funding jeopardy as well. So that has also been relayed to the Region 9 ACF, and Mrs. Gorman meets with those ACF officials on a quarterly basis to keep them updated of any changes as well. In regards to the Navajo Family Assistance Services being a standalone, they receive all direct funding either from BIA or under the Administration for Children and Families. And so we have been meeting with the Administration for Children and Families, the Office of Financial Assistance. Some of those meetings are monthly so that we're ensure that we're complying with any funding requirements. So we do have monthly or quarterly meetings with our funding sources of how our proposal are moving forward. So we're not doing this without their knowing of the change. In regards to the domestic violence shelters, the distribution, one to be under Utah Navajo Health System, and regarding the grants. And so those are direct funding. And so Ms. Regina Yazzie oversees those funding to where they do have contracts that are in place. In regards to the Utah Navajo Health System, the Gentle Ironhawk Shelter, they are not receiving any domestic violence shelter funds at this point because they did not submit, they did not reply to a request for proposal to where they received direct funding because they were not open as a Gentle Ironhawk Shelter. So this is where they did not receive funding. And so this is where we're trying to collaborate with all the shelters as well. And they did receive CARES funding. And so some of the domestic violence shelters chose not to receive it because it was coming in late. So that's where we are continuing to work with domestic violence shelters.
It's like, will we go on long distance travel? You know what I mean? we needed.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to the Altex computers being outdated and there is no IT support system. So with the Division of Social Services, we worked to get every single employee, the 400 plus employees, new laptops. And so we did have an assessment that was completed in November of 2019. Again, this was prior to the pandemic, as far as looking at every single department and program employees, computer, you know, their printers, the type of internet services that they had. And a lot of them had the old DSL lines, which are very outdated. Some had other internet capabilities that were not up to par. And so this is where we have a contract with NTUA to where they are installing fiber in every single one of Division of Social Services offices. And so this is where we do want to make sure that every employee within the Division of Social Services has reliable internet services. So once that office has been upgraded to fiber, the new laptops and computers are being deployed out to that site so that they're getting new fiber internet lines. The data line is available, and so they'll have their new computer systems. And so I've had some questions in that area. So we do have the systems. It's just where we're waiting for the fiber lines to get to all the offices. And I believe Ms. Marlinda Litterman will be giving an update in regards to our IT infrastructure as well. In regards to IT support, we are currently using an outside consultant just for our office of the Executive Director, consulting services for IT, because we had our IT person retire. And so we do have, hopefully we'll be onboarding a new principal information system tech at the Office of Exec Director. It's taken quite a while to go through the onboarding process through the background clearance area and the IMS. So we will be hoping to bring on a new IT person soon. I'm hoping at least within the next 2 weeks. And so some of the departments and programs do have their own IT support within their program. So we are trying to look at the needs of the employees as well. There is on the agenda a report number D regarding the closure of services. And so, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want me to talk about Navajo Mountain now, or until we get to on the agenda item D. And then regarding the vacancy listing, Division of Social Services, we received a report from Department of Personnel Management, I believe last week. And we do have overall within the Division of Social Services, 242 vacant positions. And so that has been reviewed as well. So a lot of those positions, and I can have any of the managers speak to that as well. The whole process within the Department of Family Services is being streamlined right now. We do have financial and personnel task force meetings, which is with the other directors, to see how we can streamline some of these processes. When with some of the positions, they may be reclassified. And on average, those take 6 to 9 months for one position. So when you see a high vacancy opening, it's because we're trying to have these positions classified or reclassified. In regards to going through the job vacancy announcements, those take on average 2 to 6 weeks to get it listed on the Navajo Nation JVA listing. And then once the process has been completed, the assessments are quite timely. So it's a systemic issue. It's not putting blame on any certain department or division. It's a systemic issue. And this is where with all the directors, we're working on that. And I believe Dr. Fowler gave a report last week that they did do a request for proposal for an assessment to see how these processes can be streamlined. So we know it's an area of concern. It's a systemic issue, and that this is an area that's being worked on. So when you're seeing the high vacancy numbers in regards to are people applying? Yes, they are applying. In some of the areas, the position job description under the pay and classification titles, they're in a way that are very narrow. An example is if someone has a social worker or senior social worker or principal social worker, the only allowance currently in the pay and classification title is the person has to have only a bachelor in social work or master in social work. And this is from many years ago that this was put in place. So we've been meeting with Department of Personnel Management. We had a meeting with Racita Toddy 2 weeks ago with Ms. Regina Yazzie and Ms. Mary Deschini Reyna, who oversees the ICWA program, as far as we don't want to have that narrowness of the related fields. And so this is where we're looking at having a person applying for a social worker position to be open to a bachelor's degree in sociology, psychology, criminology. So that's part of the area that we're struggling with. The other one is in accounting. We have several accounting positions that cannot be filled because apparently there was an audit many years ago again that there was a lot of paraprofessionals and that at that time the recommendation was to have any starting accountant position, they have to have a bachelor's degree in business administration. So we sort of narrow some of these positions, and that's where we do have capable individuals with degrees that are related or paraprofessionals that we're not allowing, they're not being forwarded to the divisions or the departments because they are not meeting the minimum qualifications. So we continue to work in that area as well. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, that's my response. And my only outstanding question is in regards to Navajo Mountain. Did you want this report to be done now or until we get to the agenda item D? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gishi. The aspect of the Navajo Mountain question, wait for that response. I want to make sure that Herman Daniels is on the call when we get to that issue. Committee members, does anybody else want to have a question or a statement?
Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning. My name is Darlene Pino. I'm the Nazis on Chapter Navajo Mountain Vice President. Just to let you know that I am aware of the situation, and I reached out, and while you're waiting for Mr. Daniels, I am here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the call, Ms. Pino, and I stated we'll answer to the Honorable Vice Chair Slater's question will be when we get to the item on our work session. We appreciate your attendance right at the start. In that regard, Ms. Edward Gishi, you may continue on your presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. So we'll go to item B on the agenda, reports, and that will be provided by overview of the Division of Social Services strategic plan, as well as the Navajo plan. And I'll turn my time over to Marlinda Litterman, Deputy Division Director. Marlinda.
Thank you, Ms. Neswit-Gishi, and good morning to the members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee, and also guests and staff that are part of this call. So I'll be echoing a lot of the information that our team members have gone over. But I know one of the information that was requested was the goals and objectives of the division. And I would say that we are working on our goals and objectives in threefold. We are following a couple of plans. One of them is the Navajo plan, which is from our administration, the Office of President, Vice President. And then we also have our division's strategic plan, and of course, our general funds goals and objective as well. So the first thing that I will go over is the division's strategic plan. So before I came on board back in 2019, the division, they went through their strategic plan work sessions. And during this time, these work session, it included members from our program staff, managers, and also the executives. So it was a division-wide strategic plan with input from all level. And as a group, and I believe we also receive technical assistance from OPVP and also from KC Family Program. And as a result, there was 3 strategies or goals that were identified. And the first one is recruitment and onboarding. And I'm just going to kind of quickly go through because there is a lot to cover under each of these recruitment and onboarding. But before I get into that, I just want to say that these goals and objectives, or the legislation that's before you for consideration, our goals and objectives are all in support of one another, vice versa. So in terms of the recruitment and onboarding, one of the initiatives that the division did was to have program staff get trained on the qualification assessment, which of course DPM provides these training. So we have quite a few members of our staff that have been trained in this qualification and assessment in hopes that we can improve our recruitment and onboarding process. Also, the executive also developed a human resources section, and we recently brought on board a staff member to head that section. And currently we're working with him to work on these recruitment and onboarding strategies. And we also would like to develop a video orientation so that all these new staff members that are coming on board are well aware of each of our programs. The next goal is staff development. And part of the staff development internally, what we're doing is we're planning an employee recognition ceremony. Although our turnover rate may be high, on the other side of that is we have a lot of staff members that have been with the division for more than 10 years, more than 15 years, and we'll be having this ceremony, virtual ceremony, to recognize their commitment. We're also planning a general staff meeting, which is part of it is to communicate consistently across the division. We also like to keep cultural teachings incorporated into our goals and objective. But I think more importantly, we would like to focus on this. You've heard it echoed all morning, TAS, the Tribal Assistant System, the electronic case management training. As part of staff development strategies, that's going to be a very big initiative, huge initiative for the division to have our staff trained on these modules, and that will really help to streamline our processes and our automation processes, not only for reporting, but also for payment processes. And another thing that we're doing is we've recently trained on trauma-informed training as well. Moving on to the third strategic plan, communication. Another initiative is the executive office develop a communication section. And we do have a communications manager, Delilah Goodluck, who's currently working on the concept of one voice through a consistent brand image. And we do communicate internally and externally through press releases. And one of the important role of this communication is going to be communicating the goals and objective, not only of the strategic plan, but of all the program goals and objective as well. The next goal is Streamline Technology. And so we would like to have our staff member have access to up-to-date IT equipment. And prior to me coming on board, division did order new equipment, hardware and software for all division staff. And they've been coming in, and the equipment has been going to the Navajo Nation Property Management. And a lot of the equipment, they were stored there for a very long time. And so we've been working with the Navajo Nation Property Management staff to coordinate with them to tag these items. And now they've been transferred to us here within the division. So the hardware is now within our possession. But this IT implementation, it's in four stages or 4 phases. The first phase is the networking phase. And we recently received an update from our consultant, Eagleson, and they are working on doing, as Ms. Neswick-Gishi mentioned earlier, the installation of these network. Part of the, I guess what slows down the process is we have to get approval from the landowners or the landlords, I'm sorry. For example, if we're renting from like maybe a facility over in Crown Point with the campus there, we would have to go through the NTU to get approval before we install any networking. So those are just some extra steps that we have to take before the networks are installed. So we are still in the networking installation phase. The next phase will be the hardware installation and also the software installation, followed by that. And then finally having our training on these, the TAS modules. So it's still going to take some time to implement all 4 phases. Having said that, there are 2 programs, or I should say 1 program who is already fully implemented with this TAS, and that's our Department for Self-Reliance. And then we also have like other programs like Developmental Disabilities who already have their own equipment, software, and through the state, and so they're already set. And also, even though we're still in a lot of these installation phases, some of our program have already been receiving and using these TAS module. For example, INFAS have already received their school clothing TAS training, and that's what they use to pay out the school clothing earlier this year. And then our Navajo Treatment Center for Children and their family, they're also scheduled to get their TAS training here as well. Our next, I'll try to speed it up here. We have 2 other goals, the continuous quality improvement. A lot of the, this will be kind of a check and balance for us, but a lot of the, how we know to improve is going to be running these data, these reports from this TAS. And that's why it's really important for us that we move forward with this TAS implementation. We also have our trauma-informed organization change. We recently partnered with Casey Family Program to get an introduction in regards to this concept. And we'll be having additional training and developing plans to implement this concept throughout the division. Now, let me move on to the Nahata plan, which is an initiative from our administration. There are 13 areas that, even though not all of them refer or not all of them relate to the Division of Social Services. However, we as we were reviewing these goals and objectives, we do touch a little bit on all of these 13 areas. The majority of our focus in meeting the Nahata plan is in the family, because that's pretty much what our division focuses on, and everywhere from childcare to developmental disabilities to Indian child welfare, adult home and care, foster care, adoption, domestic violence, Arizona long-term care, adult protective service, child protective services, benefit services, temporary assistance for needy family, mental health services. So we're already doing a lot of those services that we provide. Of course, a lot of our, we also focus heavily on behavioral and mental health, which is through the Navajo Treatment Center. So they focus a lot on the intervention and prevention in those areas. And even for economic development as well. For example, DSR, the Department for Self-Reliance, they partner with these different, I'll just use BASHES as an example, to train individuals, and then they become employed. Child care centers, they also train and they provide child care providers. So for community members, working parents as well. Another area is budget and finance. We've been working a lot with OOC to trying to streamline a lot of these benefit assistance payments. And I'll just touch up a little bit on each area just to get through quickly. Education and cultural language is another initiative under the administration. And the Navajo Treatment Center, they do their radio forums in Navajo and in English. Our childcare centers, they have Navajo language curriculum included. The Navajo language included in their curriculum. And then even some of their facilities, they provide traditional food. In terms of governmental affairs and policies, we do have intergovernmental agreement, for example, with Arizona DES. We have MOAs with the Casey Family Program. So just to name a few, and public safety, we are currently working with them to spend the COVID-19 relief funds for burial assistance, and also working with them on victim witness advocacy program. In terms of infrastructure, our childcare is actually proposing 3 new childcare centers, and I'll just name one of them, which is in Kayenta, Arizona. And through an MOA, they're also working with the Kayenta Township, where they were allowed to use the access road to the Indian Health Services so that they don't have to spend additional funds on plan, design, and constructions for another access road. In terms of agriculture, Department for Self-Reliance is working with NAPI to have DSR receive training through them. And moving on to priorities of First Lady and Second Lady, we have been involved with some of their initiatives in terms of providing program services. So this is just to name a couple of things that we're working on in terms of meeting the goals and objectives. Let's see, and then the last part is in regards to our FY22, our budget goals and objectives. One of them is to focus on HR, which we are working, although we do have a high vacancy list, we have our new HR staff member on board who's assisting us in filling these vacant positions. And then, of course, we are working with our consultant to address the IT. And one of the goals for our general funds is the school clothing. We are happy to report that we have spent all our funds, school clothing funding for this year in terms of general funds. And then we also have child care as well. That's part of our goal. They have developed their reopening plan, and they have been slowly reopening the child care centers, and so that's under the director of Sylvia Tyler. So that will be my presentation. So I just want to say that the division is doing a lot in terms of, trying to touch up on all of these goals for our own strategic plan, for the NAHTA plan, for our general funds budget. And a lot of it is in support of streamlining and automating our processes. And I would just like to thank the committee members for allowing us this time to provide this information to you and to share this information with you. So that will conclude my presentation, and I'll turn it back over to Ms. Neswit-Kishi. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marlinda, for a review of the Division of Social Services goals and objectives and the Nahat'am plan. So we'll go to item C, report. The funds reverted to the federal government covering the previous 5 years, including the 6 of 8 contracts not fully used to benefit the Navajo Nation. The presenter is Ms. Brenda Sosi, Principal Accountant, Office of Executive Director. Brenda?
Thank you, Dana. Good morning, Health, Education, and Human Services Committee. My name is Brenda Sosi. I'm the Principal Accountant for Division of Social Services, and I will be presenting the DSS's financial report. This report covers the past 5 years from fiscal year 2017 to 2021, also included are the current fiscal year 22 information. DSS has 14 different funding sources overall, and I will do the presentation by funding sources. So in this presentation, you will see the pie that is just as an overall, just to see at a glance, which is from the different funding sources that we receive. From the federal funds, we receive 79%, and then from the BIA, 18%, IHS 1%, Navajo Nation General Funds 1%, and state 1%. So I'll go into the presentation that I provided here for, so like I said, this is by funding sources. The first page will cover the general funds. I have it by business unit, and then I have it by the description, also the revised budget expenditure, and if there's any encumbrances, and then the balances. The first one I have is for the Office of the Executive Director, which is, we receive only just the general funds. And that's the only funding source that we receive. So I have FY 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and current 22. So there are revised budget, like I said, expenditures, and I have balances. And then going on to the Navajo School Clothing Program, that's Business Unit 117008. I have FY 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then the current 22 as well. And as you can see, there's revised budget expenditures and balances. Then we have the Department of Family Services. They receive general funds as well. And that's for Business Unit 117022. And I have them for FY 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then the current as well. And then they have, and I show the revised budget expenditure and any encumbrances and balances. Then the one that we are talking about, where we have the COVID-19 response donation that was received by Department of Emergency Management, the police department. I have that as well. This covers all the burial assistance. And I also have the revised budget expenditure obligation balances. Then the Casey Family Foundation, that's for school clothing. We did receive that $300,000. So that's actually for the general funds. And then next, I have the proprietary funds, which are the child care centers. And they are the 3 child care centers. There's Chinle Daycare Center, Fort Defiance Daycare Center, and then Shiprock Daycare Centers. So each one of them, I have fiscal years 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then I have the current 22. Then I have the revised budget, expenditure, obligation, and balances. Just to explain how this report was prepared was that we have the revised budget, then we have the expenditure, and then the obligation, which is the encumbrances and the balances. So when you see the balances for each fiscal year, those are the actual balances for that year. So that's for the 3 daycare centers. Then next is the Title 20. This is the state Title 20 that Department of Family Services receives. I have in here Title 20 for Arizona. I have it for fiscal year 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and I have current year. So I do have the revised balance expenditures, encumbrances, and balances. And then for the Title 20 New Mexico, I have them for FY 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So I do have them as well by revised budget, expenditure, encumbrances, and balances. Then for the Title 20 Utah funds, that's also the same way. I have it for FY 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and I have current 22. So they are prepared by revised budget, expenditure, encumbrances, and balances. So that's for the state Title 20 funding that we receive. Then the next is the Arizona long-term care. That's for Arizona. The only funding that we get is for Arizona. And I have them by fiscal year 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and also 22 as well, just to show you the information. So I do have it by revised budget, expenditure, and then encumbrances and balances. And this one is fee for service. Because they are, the way the budget is set up is where it's just a proposed number of cases times the number of rates. So that's how the budgets are set up. So when you see these balances, it's really just based off of members. DD is the same way, Department Disabilities Program, that's Arizona. And this is also fee for service, where the budget is set up by number of members times the negotiated rate for that year. So I have it for FY 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 as well. So the budget's also, like I said, set up the same way as Arizona long-term. Then the Title 4B, Subpart 1, which is promoting safe and stable families. I have it for fiscal year 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. They have admin funds, and then they have direct funds as well. So this is how the budget was set up for them. This is the funding that we get from the Federal Administration for Children and Families. The Subpart 2, Title 4B, Subpart 2, this is the Child Welfare Services. I also have it by fiscal years as well. I have fiscal year 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So those are also, they come in, I mean, when the funds are received, they are internally, they have different percentages that go to admin direct, and then some goes to, well, back then in 17, 18, and 19, it went to, some of it was shared with ICWA treatment centers as well. So those are for FY 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. When we go into the Family Violence, that's Prevention, Family Violence Prevention and Service Act. And this is also set up by administrative or direct funding. And then we have the subcontractors. The subcontractors, this is where the family violence shelters are under the subcontract. So I have it for 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So this is how the budgets are set up. The way this is set up is kind of, like I said, it's by categories, and also in FY21, we did receive the ARPA funds as well, which is all going to the shelters as well. Then we have the LIHEAP, that's Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. I do have it by fiscal years as well. 17, then we have, you would see the K18 account number, but it's for 17. Administration, also direct carryover funds. 18, I have fiscal year 18, 19, 20, 21. Then in here, I do have also the Low Income Home Water Assistance Program as well, the LIWAP that we were referring to. So this is how the funding was allocated, revised budget, expenditure, encumbrances, and balances as well. Then going on to the Community Service Block Grant, the CSBG, I have it for FY 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So these are the funds that came in for admin costs and also direct. And then I have the overall 638 budget that I prepared, the expenditure report that I prepared as well, which is Bureau of Indian Affairs from 17 into current. I have FY 17. Back then they had one contract in 17, which was included with DFS Treatment Center, and then also the INFAS, which is the Navajo Assistance Family Services. So back then it was set up that way. And then also 18, 19, 20, then 21, that's where we still have that as well. Then 22, I have it for FY 22 as well. I just combine all of these so that way you would see just the overall budget and then the expenditures, encumbrances, and balances. Because if I begin to start separating it by programs, it's kind of hard to follow. But if it's by funding source, it's easier to read. Then the IHS, that's for treatment center. Treatment center is the only one that receives the IHS funding. I have it for 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21 as well. Then childcare, development block grant. Also, they have, oops, there are 17 that I missed up here. disregard what I have for 17 here. I didn't change the dollar amounts here, but I have what for 18, 19, 20, and 21. These are the funding that they receive. Then Department for Self-Reliance, the same way, FY 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. This is the funding that they receive. I have the budget in here, expenditure, the obligation, which is the encumbrances, and then the balances. That's for Department for Self-Reliance. And then I also have ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act Program. I have it for 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. So this is the funding that they receive. And just to let you know, for the 638 programs, IHS, and also Department for Self-Reliance, those fundings are open until expended. So there is no reversion. And then also the same way for all techs and DD, there's really no reversions because it's all fee for service. So anything from general funds, then the state, and then also from the federal, those would be reversions. So that's the funding sources that Department for the Division of Social Services has. And all of this, like I said, is just what I have as in the pie that I presented. That's really just to look at it at a glance. Mr. Chair, that's the DSS financial report.
Thank you. Chelsea, committee members, any questions? Honorable Vice Chair Slater, you have the floor.
Thank you. So in some of these items, it makes sense why there's big balances. In other ones, I think it gets back to the point that Ms. Naswagishi made, and that is there's a system-wide issue with, I think, HR and then with the financial side of things. And I want to know how the reforms contained in this proposed plan of operations revision will improve HR and will improve the financial processing, grants, payments, et cetera. And then what efforts have been made by the administration to address this systemically across the executive branch? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair So, and thank you, Honorable Doggett Slater, for the question. I didn't quite get the first question, but in regards to the efforts to address the systemic issue within the executive branch. So we are being a little bit more proactive within the Division of Social Services as far as reaching out to the new the new Director of Department of Personnel Management, Ms. Thomasita Whitty, as well as Ms. Racita Toddy, who is the Pay and Classification Manager. So we're meeting with them more proactively to address any delays in our hiring process. Some of them have taken 6 to 8 months to get them through the process, the potential employee. So those are some areas that we're having individual meetings with Department of Personnel Management leadership. In regards to the entire executive branch, so there are 4 task force that President Nez has initiated with the directors and how we're going to address any issues. And one of them is the Personnel Task Force, which is headed by Dr. Fowler. And so, and Executive Director, Garrett Silversmith, on areas to address the systemic issues within the personnel. And so there's other task force meeting. One of them is the Financial Task Force Work Group, which is overseen by Chief of Staff Chaco, as well as Controller Begay, on how to address any systemic changes that need to occur in the financial area. So because we see personnel and financial they have to complement one another. So this last meeting that we held with the personnel and financial work group, which is with Chief of Staff, Controller Brigade, and the directors of the divisions or departments, I believe that's 2 weeks ago. And so we did present our concerns in writing as far as where we have some issues and some recommendations. And so President Nez did send a request to Dr. Fowler last week to meet with the Division of Social Services on these systemic issues and how we can get them addressed. So we are actively working on that. We're not going to wait for a request for proposal to be completed and a new consultant join areas. And so they are looking at other areas that, of course, we're involved with. One item is the automation of the timesheet. Every 2 weeks, we have to sign a legal size form and red pin. And so they're looking at automating the timesheet. And of course, I requested for Division of Social Services to be a pilot division. And so they are accepting our request. And so we will have our timekeepers start doing the automation of logging in for timesheet purposes. So we do work collaboratively. And yes, we're not all pleased at certain times, but we work through the issue with any department or program to see how to benefit the entire Navajo Nation. So when we see issues or concerns, we try and work with our counterparts to get them addressed. Delegate Slater, I didn't hear the first part of your question as far as something about how the change will have an impact. If you can restate your question, I can certainly do a response. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. The question is, how is this plan of operations revision going to streamline or expedite or improve, I don't want to say these processes or service delivery that includes the HR issues and includes the financial management issues?
Thank you for clarifying the question, Delegate Slater. So the plan of operation, how we're looking at streamlining, one area is the Navajo Family Assistance Services. What we will be doing in regards to streamlining the process, right now, there has been sort of as a bottleneck. We have field offices that are taking the applications and they are making the decisions out at the field, but then the documents have to funnel into Window Rock so that the request for direct payment can be made. And then we have Ms. Mateba having to sign. And so when we're updating the plan of operation, we will be having 3 principal caseworkers who will oversee the field offices to make those decisions more timely. And then with the automation of the case management database, they will input out at the field. And so nothing has to be coming into Window Rock. So those decisions will be made, they'll be entered into a database. The local supervisor out at the field offices will ensure everything's correct, do the approval out in the field, and then it will be uploaded when we're doing our next batch processing of checks. So this is where the Navajo Family Assistance Services has sort of been not at the forefront. And this is where we're looking at really streamlining the services of the NFAS is the acronym that we call. In regards to the HR portion of it, we are working on getting additional positions so that they can efficiently provide the services that need to be done in a timely manner. An example, Department for Self-Reliance, I believe their caseload for families that they're serving, at one point it was at 3,000 families that they serve with TANF benefits on a monthly basis. And the Department for Self-Reliance, they have about 120 employees to assist those 3,000 families with ongoing services. Now at Navajo Family Assistance Services, when we started, there was 11 staff. 11 staff were trying to administer millions of dollars. And so they didn't have the capacity to offer the service. They didn't have the necessary equipment and supervision. So this is where it will help the services to be more efficient for Navajo Family Assistance Services. In regards to the other areas that's going to be moving forward, when we talk about how we're streamlining these services, we're going to start looking at the staff will benefit because they will have more resources available. We're trying to leverage our responsibilities and workload. So with social services, we're looking at streamlining those financial services, very specific. A lot of the NFAS services are one-time assistance, so they're not doing ongoing case management. The only component under Navajo Family Assistance Services that is ongoing case management is general assistance. That's where they have an individual self-sufficiency plan, working with the family so that they can get the needed resources so that they can have livable wages. Or with general assistance, they have non-employable, maybe they're needing assistance to get through the process of applying for maybe SSI benefits. So that's where we're looking at this change. Again, primarily the focus is on Navajo Family Assistance Services to remove them from the Department for Self-Reliance, to add them into Office of Executive Director as a standalone program. So again, those aren't changing. It's just realigning them so that they have a full program that's going to have that direct impact within the Division of Social Services. Thank you, Ms. Delegate Slater, for your question.
Thank you, Ms. Neswit-Gishi. In regard, some of the budget balances go back all the way to 2017. We amended the plan of operation in 2020. And I see that there is continuing outstanding balances. And so that amendment that we had approved on the plan of operation, it just seems like it really didn't have effect. Now you're coming to us again, and these outstanding balances, they just, my concern is fee for services. Do you have a plan to zero out the previous outstanding balances before you start using some of the 2022 funds? Otherwise, a year from now, there'll still be outstanding balances. The other is Miss Angelica Benali. If we could also get OOC and OMB, as well as the Office of Contracts and Grants. to chime in on some of these budget reports. As I recall, during Navajo deliberations, the donations for the covert relief was all going to emergency management. But I see that for some reason, the business unit exists within the Division of Social Services. That would be a question. Then I see outstanding balances for burial assistance. And there had been within the previous 3 or 4 months, the aspect that there were no more regular 638 burial assistance funds. But I see balances that go that are unused from previous years. So that is one aspect that is concerning. And should this amendment go forward, how does the committee, how can you assure the committee that these reorganizations and amendments will affect the usage of the proprietary funds as well as the general funds? How will you assure that they will be used within the time frame that they're budgeted for? That's a major concern. And then Ms. Laureline Tapahi, you're the author of these proposed amendments. I would ask that there be an amendment drafted, that there be, with the approval of these this plan of operation, that the division and all the program directors and supervisors will assure that within Division of Social Services that there would be the adherence that the workplace will be free of harassment, free of a threatening workplace environment. We've heard and seen too many items that basically occurred, and most specifically, it was within the ICWA aspect. And if there is a pattern existing, we certainly want to cut that pattern out. Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi.
Thank you, Honorable Chair So, for the questions and clarifications and comments. In regards to the concern that the plan of operation was approved in 2020 and you're continually seeing outstanding balances and that there's no effect. Again, when we presented before the Oversight Committee on January 8th, 2020, we had no knowledge that we would be in a pandemic 2 months later. So we had to shift our services to how we're going to meet the needs of individuals who were living through a pandemic, and not just only the families we're serving, but our employees. As I believe Mrs. Gorman had presented that there was where there was a stay-at-home order. So there was other impacts that we did not foresee in January when our initial plan operation was approved. So those are some areas that we will continue to move forward with. In regards to the donation given to Department of Emergency Management, we do not have the budget within the Division of Social Services. The budget remains under Department of Emergency Management. And we did have to go through the Budget and Finance Committee in order for DEM to acknowledge that $4 million would be utilized for Navajo Nation COVID-19 burial assistance. So we are taking the applications. We're working with the family and the mortuaries to process the applications for COVID-19 burial assistance. And then we package them every Thursday, and they are forwarded to DEM for their review and processing. So the funds still remain within Department of Emergency Management. And the question regarding the regular 638 funding for burial assistance, there has been funds for the regular 638 burial assistance that has not, they have not run out of any funds. So that has continued. Maybe there's just a misunderstanding regarding burial assistance. The Navajo Nation COVID-19, that Division of Social Services we had oversight of, the last funding source was through Department of Office of Vital Records. They had some funding. And so those are the funds that had been depleted. And at the Northern Agency Council meeting on Saturday, there was a question regarding burial assistance for COVID-19, and Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton, when she provided her report, she indicated that she did request to sponsor legislation through the UUFB for burial assistance for COVID-19, and that the division had declined. And I did do a response to that, that the reason for declining that request for UUFB was because we were already working with Department of Emergency Management to secure those donation funds. So the 638 burial assistance, regular burial assistance, non-COVID-19, there are funding in that effect. And so if we can do a public notice, we do have Ms. Delilah Goodluck, our communication manager within Division of Social Services. We can do another public announcement. We did do one, I believe, 4 or 5 weeks ago, so we can update as well so that the community members are aware of what's available for their usage. And then the question that for us to Division of Social Services to assure that with this plan of operation, the effect, that it would be utilized. And honestly, Mr. Chair, members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, I cannot assure 100% that this plan of operation is going to solve all the plans that we're needing to move forward. Again, we're still in a pandemic. There's a new variant out there, so what impact it may have, we can't foresee that. And this is where, when we had the plan of operation in January 2020, we had full vision of where we needed to go. And 2 months later, we had to change our focus. And so we will do our best to implement the changes of the plan of operation if it is passed moving forward. And then in regards to doing amendments to, I guess, assignment to Ms. Laureline Tapa, adding additional language to ensure that there's going to be a workforce free of harassment. And I guess it's referenced the ICWA program. There has been no comments or complaints regarding harassment or an unsafe work environment, I do have Ms. Mary Deschitney, who oversees the ICWA program. And I assure you, there's no harassment or workplace issues with the ICWA currently. So, that's an area that we will have continued discussion of. And as presented, we do have 6 innovation strategies. And one of them is to have our employees, we want to have a workplace to where we're aware of where we're at and that we're going to provide the best services that we can. They call it a trauma-informed workforce. And that's where those are one of our innovation strategies that we're trying to work at. So we've heard that the committee in prior meetings, and this is where we hear the comments by the committee, the public, and this is where we meet with all of the managers who are on this presentation today. Every Monday at 10 a.m. we normally meet and we discuss any issues or concerns. And as well as I provide updates for every Monday morning meeting we have with the Office of the President, Vice President, and Directors every Monday at 7 a.m. So we're improving in our areas of communication moving forward. So, Mr. Chair, I hope that provides a response to your comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, it's what the committee heard regarding ICWA and how the workers were treated. What I'm trying to avoid is a pattern where the top-down management is allowing that pattern. That amendment is basically to assure the committee that we acknowledge the pattern and we're going to include this amendment to ensure that acknowledgement of the law is part of the plan of operation. Committee members, I'm going to call a recess, 1 hour recess on this work session, and the committee will reconvene at 12:41. Thank you. We've got several items to take care of here.